1999's Wild Zero is a difficult movie to summarize neatly. It's somehow simultaneously a zombie movie, a romance that would be progressive even by today's standards, an outlandish comedy, a drinking game, and also a prescient commentary on the direction of the Japanese music industry in the late 1990s. It also has the rare distinction of having a perfect 100 score on Rotten Tomatoes, making it scientifically and objectively one of the greatest films ever made. I happened upon Wild Zero when I woke up before my friends at a convention and decided to go to an early morning panel on Japanese B-movies instead of just sitting around the room. It was there that I was introduced to what are now some of my favorite films, like Calamari Wrestler, Executive Koala, Takashi Miike's Dead or Alive, and Electric Dragon 80,000 Volts. However, of all the films in that panel, Wild Zero is what has stuck with me the most. It would be easy to watch this film and walk away thinking that it was just a zany comedy about a punk rock band. And after going through 20-odd years of reviews, it seems like that might even be the prevailing opinion. However, if you're willing to look a little bit deeper, underneath the CGI aliens, zombies, and absolutely flawless pompadours, there is something very sincere at the heart of Wild Zero. Above all, it is a love letter to the music, movies, and culture that has inspired both it and the real-life band Guitar Wolf. To understand Wild Zero is to understand the spirit at the heart of rock and roll itself. But to understand this 1999 zombie movie, we need to go back to the beginning, because this story starts in 1958, with 3 chords that would change the course of music history. That is the opening to Rumble, first recorded by Link Wray and his Raymen in 1958. Even if you've never heard the name of that song, there's a very good chance that you're familiar with it. It's hard to overstate the legacy of Rumble. It's been featured in Pulp Fiction, The Sopranos, and even the Death Grips mixtape Ex-Military. Bob Dylan has called it the greatest instrumental of all time. It's what moved Iggy Pop to pursue a career in music. It even has the unique distinction of being the only instrumental so controversial it was banned from the radio. Even though Rumble has left a crater-sized impact in the history of popular music, its origin is practically an accident. One night in Fredericksburg, Virginia, Link and his band were playing at a record hop when the announcer asked the band to play something that the crowd could dance the stroll to. The stroll being the dance craze of the day, accompanied by the Canadian doo-wop band The Diamonds' song of the same name. However, despite the stroll's popularity, no one in the band had any idea what the announcer was talking about, with the exception of Link's brother Doug on the drums. But even then, he only knew how to play the beat. So that's what he did. He started playing the beat with the wrong ends of his sticks, and so loud that another member of the band had the inspired idea to hold a vocal microphone up to Link's amplifier so it could be heard over the drums. Feedback between the microphone and the amplifier altered the tone of Link's guitar, so it came through dripping with tremolo and distortion. It was a sound unlike anything anyone had heard before. When all was said and done, the crowd was banging on the stage asking for repeats of the song, and Link could barely remember what it was he had just played. Sensing that there was something here, the band rushed to record the song that they then called Oddball, but initially struggled to recreate the sound of the live performance. Out of either genius or frustration, Link used a pen to punch holes in the cone of his amplifier, creating the tone that you can still hear on the recordings today. It's similar to what the Kinks famously did to get the guitar tone for You Really Got Me in 1964. Record executives at the time thought that the song was a piece of crap, just an amateur playing through a broken amplifier. But in this story of coincidences, there is still one more to go. Archie Blyer of Cadence Records was talked into releasing Rumble by his stepdaughter, who heard it and absolutely loved the song. Turns out that she wasn't alone. After its release, Rumble would go on to sell millions of copies at a time where those kinds of numbers were simply unheard of. Despite his outsized impact on the music industry, Link would say of himself, quote, "I don't consider myself a great musician. I just consider myself an average guitar player who looks for sounds. That's how I made Rumble," end quote. A few years later, in 1963, the man who would become Guitar Wolf was born in the countryside prefecture of Nagasaki, Japan. From here on, I'll say Guitar Wolf the band when referring to the band, and use either Guitar Wolf or his real name Seiji to refer to the artist. Like many junior high students, Seiji had aspirations of starting a band, but also, like many junior high students, struggled to improve a guitar. In his own words, quote, "I had tried really hard to improve my guitar play many times since I was in junior high school, but I kept failing. I couldn't play the F chord. If you can't play F, how could you go further to be a guitar player? I thought it was impossible for me to be able to play the guitar as I wanted. Then I happened to buy Link Wray's album. I hadn't listened to him before, I just bought it because I liked the jacket." End quote. Part of the enduring appeal of Rumble is in its simplicity. The opening chord sequence isn't that hard to play. Even if you're the kind of person that bought a Les Paul after watching Bocchi the Rock and gave up shortly after, you could also learn to play it. After 3 prior failed attempts to learn guitar, hearing Rumble for the first time motivated Seiji to try again and would come to define his approach to music. Simple songs played with attitude. Rock and roll isn't about what you do, it's about how you do it. Seiji credits Link with saving his musical life, and nods to Link Wray appear multiple times in Guitar Wolf's discography, either in covers of Rumble or direct references. Although he says that he's not the kind of person that typically regrets things, never being able to meet Link Wray himself is one of Seiji's only regrets. Quote, "There was nothing to talk about with him, he was my aspiration. I just wanted to shake his hand and get his autograph on the back of my leather jacket. That's all I wanted." End quote. After high school, Seiji, now a self-described bad boy and kendo captain, moved to Tokyo and started working in a throwback shop in the Harajuku district. Since the 1970s, Harajuku has been known as a fashion hub, and there are many popular accounts across social media that will showcase outfits from the district. During the period where Seiji first moved there, though, Harajuku was also known for live music on top of fashion. New bands would gather in the district to play open-air gigs to crowds numbering in the thousands. The energy across Tokyo at the time produced bands like the 5678s, Jet Boys, and of course, Guitar Wolf. After finding out they were interested in the same kinds of music, Seiji convinced his friend Billy to start a band with him. The group would eventually find a long-term drummer in Toru, adopt Ramones-inspired names Guitar Wolf, Bass Wolf, and Drum Wolf, and with that, the first long-term lineup of Guitar Wolf was complete. Guitar Wolf, both the band and person, have been active for over 30 years since. They've toured the world, released 15 studio albums, and survived Billy's tragic passing from a heart attack in 2005. The band even landed a contract with a major label after Seiji drunkenly stomped around on top of the record bins at a New York in-store performance, knocked himself unconscious on a ceiling fan, and still managed to finish the set. The band describes their music as jet rock, and they claim to be the loudest band in the world. The technicians that recorded their album Jet Generation claimed it, quote, "exceeds the theoretical maximum possible on compact disc audio," end quote. Did I mention that Guitar Wolf also canonically exists in the manga and anime Black Lagoon? Despite the years and success, Seiji's approach to music and recording hasn't changed much. Guitar Wolf himself owns that they are not a group of excellent musicians, but whatever they might lack in technique, they more than make up for in their own unique style. And style is a subject that comes up frequently in interviews with Guitar Wolf. Quote, "Having your own original style is all. Your style is like your venom you have. In order to find your venom inside you, you fall in love and get dumped. You fight, ride the motorcycle, and live your own life. If you have your own style, even though you do the same thing as other people, things would be your originals. It's not easy to get it at all. You just keep struggling and trying. I'm still struggling every day." From the countryside of Japan with dreams of making it big to touring the world as the loudest band in the universe, all while staying committed to their own original style. That's the story of Guitar Wolf, and it's the kind of story that movies are made of. Movies like Wild Zero. Spoilers ahead for Wild Zero, but I'm going to be honest, enough happens in this movie that it's honestly kind of hard to spoil. Even if you know everything that's going to happen, the spectacle of how it all comes together is something special. I'm usually not the kind of person that watches things multiple times, but every time I sit down to watch Wild Zero, I find something new to love about it. The movie was written and directed by Tetsuro Takeuchi, who is himself known more so for his work on music videos. He does have one other film credit, but only Wild Zero shows up on his Rotten Tomatoes page, giving him a flawless 100 record. Speaking strictly scientifically and objectively, this makes him one of the strongest writers and directors to ever live. Although Guitar Wolf himself might dispute that writing credit. According to Guitar Wolf, Takeuchi was a music video director that wanted to film the daily lives of the band. So not only did everything in this movie actually happen, but it was just another day in the lives of Guitar Wolf, Bass Wolf, and Drum Wolf. This would also mean that Wild Zero was actually eligible for the 1999 Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature Film. Now, I can't even play an F chord, so I'm not in any position to question the word of Guitar Wolf himself, but I'm going to go ahead and keep talking as if Wild Zero is a work of fiction. After seeing the CGI alien spaceships that open the film, you might not be shocked to learn that Wild Zero was filmed on a minimal budget. Even though the story is set in Japan, filming took place in Thailand. In fact, astute viewers might even notice that the Thai language road signs throughout the film have been papered over. Shooting took place near a Thai military base, and all of the zombies in the movie are either members of the Thai army or members of their families that wanted to be extras. Producers initially had low expectations for Wild Zero, slating it for a video-only release. However, after an attention-grabbing debut at the Toronto Film Festival in 2000, Wild Zero rocketed to cult status and a global theatrical release. Over 20 years have passed since, and Wild Zero still has a place on the international film circuit and counts Guillermo del Toro and Edgar Wright amongst its fans. It's not that hard to see why. Whatever Wild Zero may have been lacking in budget, it more than makes up for in character. Even the DVD menus feature explosions, fire, microphone feedback, and Guitar Wolf's signature jet rock sound. If you dig into the special features, you'll even find the infamous Wild Zero drinking game. The rules are simple. Drink every time fire shoots out of something, somebody says "Rock and roll!" Someone combs their hair, someone drinks, something explodes, or a zombie's head pops. It sounds easy, right? After all, how many times can one movie show people combing their hair? The answer is many, many times. Pompadours like this take work. In all of my years of loving this film, I have never once finished this drinking game. I've also never met anyone else who has. It's a cruel Sisyphean task designed by the gods of jet rock to punish us mere mortals for our hubris. It's also one of the best ways to set the tone for the film. Both the budget and style of Wild Zero are on full display from minute one, jumping between a campy CGI alien invasion to a slow pan across a wall full of posters. If you're at all familiar with Guitar Wolf's influences, and let's be real, at this point you're pretty deep in this video, you won't be surprised to see names like Gene Vincent and his Blue Caps, Bruce Lee, Iggy and the Stooges, the Ramones, and of course Link Wray on display here. Wild Zero is the kind of movie that wears its heart on the sleeve of a leather jacket. Even though they are front and center on the poster for the movie, the members of Guitar Wolf aren't actually the main characters of Wild Zero. That distinction belongs to Ace. We first see Ace as he's getting ready to head out to a Guitar Wolf concert. Ace is, well, he's a dork. Maybe even a little bit of a goober. He can't actually play guitar. He stole his comb from his mom, and he rides his motorcycle like he's out for a pleasant Sunday drive. He idolizes Guitar Wolf, but he's also painfully aware that at his core, he's a poser. The admiration that Ace feels for Guitar Wolf is palpable later on at the concert. The energy in the room is electric, literally. Lightning is jumping between members of the band, and Guitar Wolf uses his nondescript powers of jet rock to blast a crowd surfer with a bolt of lightning without even missing a beat. And remember, according to Guitar Wolf himself, everything in this movie actually happened. Later in the bathroom, Ace is making use of the comb that he probably stole from his mom and telling a disinterested janitor about his dreams of rock and roll stardom. While all this is going on, the band has already walked right into the back room to confront the crooked manager known only as the Captain. The Captain and Guitar Wolf have a history together, but the Captain has since renounced rock and roll in favor of dealing drugs and embracing capitalist cynicism. Their confrontation boils over into a Western standoff, broken only when Ace storms into the room after hearing the Captain's declaration that rock and roll is over, baby. Completely oblivious to everything else going on, he shouts back, "Rock and roll is not over, rock and roll never dies." He's then promptly knocked out by one of the Captain's bodyguards, but the distraction was enough for Guitar Wolf to win the standoff and make it out unharmed. Ace might be a goober, but his passion is genuine. Sensing him as a kindred spirit, Guitar Wolf cuts the back of a still only partially conscious Ace's hand and makes him a blood brother. He also leaves him with a whistle and tells him to blow it when he's in danger. The band takes off into the night, the Captain swears revenge, and Ace tries to recompose himself after his idol just gave him a possibly magical whistle. The next morning, we're introduced to a new set of characters. There's the young girl Tobio, as well as the trio of Hanako, Masao, and Toshi, who are stopping at a gas station while on their way to see a meteorite that crashed near the city. Surprising everyone, including Hanako and Toshi, Masao decides to rob the place, but in an accidental feat of heroism, Ace just happens to also be stopping at the same gas station and saves the day when he opens the door into Masao's face. This is where the heart of Wild Zero's love story finally starts to beat. To us as viewers, Ace is a dork, but to Tobio, Ace is a hero. And to Ace, Tobio is a beautiful girl that seems to think that he might actually be just a little bit cool. If his flirting is any indication, this isn't something that happens to him every day. He's so flustered that he even forgets to ask for her phone number before taking off on his motorcycle to go see another rock show. Along the way, Ace encounters a scene straight out of a horror movie. Romero-esque zombies have begun to walk the earth, and Ace has a choice to make. He can either save himself and flee, or he can turn back around and go save Tobio. As it turns out, Ace is a coward, but as he's about to falter, Guitar Wolf himself appears to his blood brother atop his own flame-belching motorcycle to keep Ace from straying off the path of rock and roll. This is also where we get Ace's first actual feat of heroism. Stopping the robbery and breaking up the armed standoff in the club were just accidents. Accidents that Ace was all too happy to take credit for. But this time he's putting himself in danger to save a girl that he barely knows. The two seek shelter from the undead in a warehouse. Ace laments his inability to save anyone and confesses to her that he can't even play guitar. The two kiss and seem to be moving towards something more intimate. Tobio starts to strip, and Ace is shocked to discover that she has a penis. The subject of Tobio's gender identity is never discussed in the film, but she's only ever referred to with she and her. Ace recoils and runs to cry in another room, which leads to the movie's most iconic scene.
そりゃねえよ。嘘だろ。エース！愛に国境も男も女も関係ねえ！やっちまえ！だけど
This kind of reveal isn't anything new. Back in 1983, Sleepaway Camp infamously closed on a shock genital reveal of the killer Angela, revealing that she had been assigned male at birth. An advertising campaign for 1992's The Crying Game asked audiences not to reveal the film's quote-unquote big secret. The secret being that the character Dill is a transgender woman. The film's director actually believed that The Crying Game's critical and commercial success in the United States had more to do with this sensational marketing than anything to do with the film's actual plot. Ace Ventura: Pet Detective would later parody The Crying Game, with the protagonist exposing the villain's genitals to a crowd of police officers during the film's finale. And only pulling from the 1980s and 90s, which was a particularly grim time for depictions of trans characters. But as I said in the opening of this video, Wild Zero would still be progressive even when judged by today's standards. I want to contrast it to The Crying Game in particular because of those three I listed, it's the most empathic. In the film, Dill reveals herself to the film's main character Fergus after they've been intimate. He strikes her in the face, starts to vomit, and then storms out of the apartment. Eventually, the two reconcile and form a relationship, but the film's handling of Dill's transness has sparked lengthy discussion over the many years since the release of the Crying Game. Critics have pointed out how the use of Fergus's perspective in the scene reinforces transphobic norms around queer bodies. His reaction, both in striking Dill and vomiting, is grounded in the idea that he has been deceived, that Dill owed him disclosure. Even the marketing campaign around the film, playing up the idea of that big secret as a way of driving audiences into theaters, was relying on the idea that audiences would find this shocking, that trans bodies would be seen as inherently abnormal and sensational. In contrast, Wild Zero takes a very different approach. This is a movie where zombies are dispatched with electrified guitar picks, aliens are invading, and fire is shooting out of basically everything. But this subplot is played completely straight. Yes, Ace's initial reaction is hyperbolic, but immediately afterward, the camera uncomfortably lingers on a dejected Tobio. Up until this point, the viewer has also been made aware that Ace is, again, a dweeb, a dork, and a goober. He's not intended to be a particularly likable character at this point in the film. Tobio is never faulted, and the movie never entertains the idea that Ace's reaction is anything but his own problem. Guitar Wolf shows up, tells Ace that transphobia is in fact not rock and roll, and it is never brought up again. This handling would be progressive even by today's standards, and remember, this movie came out in 1999. It feels dodgy to extrapolate this one scene out to the politics of the real-world people behind this film, but Wild Zero is a very earnest movie. This scene didn't need to be here. Guitar Wolf himself didn't have to go that hard reading the line that love has no borders, nationalities, or genders. It's a line that is also repeated verbatim later in the film to really drive the point home. And as you dig into the history of Guitar Wolf, their inspirations, and interviews with Seiji himself, that subject of uniqueness comes up a lot. The heart of rock and roll isn't in pompadours and power chords, it's in the willingness to follow your own truth. To fall in love, to get dumped, to fight, to ride the motorcycle, and to live your own life. In Wild Zero, the most rock and roll thing isn't the superpowered band, banging soundtrack, or exploding zombies. All of that is superficial. The most rock and roll thing here is Ace's willingness to put aside the worries of what other people might think of him and love who he loves. Ace hears Tobio's scream in the next room over and runs to her aid only to find her missing. And so he finally blows that whistle that Guitar Wolf handed him earlier. In what is a very close second for my favorite moment in the film, Guitar Wolf, but not Bass Wolf or Drum Wolf, hears it, even though the band is playing a gig in a different city. Instantly. Guitar Wolf knows that Ace is in danger. He also knows that his name is Ace, despite the fact that no one has ever told him. From this point on, the movie heads into the final act. I don't want to spoil everything, so I'm just going to touch on a couple of key points. The survivors gather for a last stand against the zombies in what is a very obvious nod to Night of the Living Dead. It's a comparison that the characters are all very aware of, even if none of them have actually seen the movie. The Captain and Guitar Wolf square off for their final, climactic battle. Guitar Wolf plays the opening chords to Rumble not once, but twice. Zombies rekindle the love that they had lost in life. Ace swears on rock and roll and his leather jacket that he will truly love Tobio. And Guitar Wolf demonstrates his greatest technique yet. After the climax, the film closes as the band sets off down the highway, leaving the remaining survivors behind. Ace notes that he's still not sure if anything in this movie was real or not, and that he never saw Guitar Wolf again after that night. On a surface level, this plays up the superpowered mystique of the band. But on a deeper level, it reasserts Ace's newfound independence. At the start of the film, he was defined by his admiration of Guitar Wolf, happily living in his shadow. But now he's found his own style, the courage to love whoever he loves and face whatever comes with that together with Tobio. He also reiterates the film's thesis: love has no boundaries, nationalities, or genders. For all that Wild Zero has been, it has been a love story above all. Not just about the love between Ace and Tobio, but love for the cultures that have inspired Guitar Wolf's music and aesthetics. It's a story about love's power to transcend even life and death. I'd even toss in the solidarity shared by Ace and Guitar Wolf, because what is solidarity if not love for another person? Wild Zero is a wholly unique movie, and there may never be anything like it again. Unless... And that's what I've got for this time. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to leave a rock and roll down there in the comments, because rock and roll will never die. This did end up taking a little bit longer than I would have liked, but moving into and renovating a house has taken up most of my free time for the past month and change. I can be happy to report that the wiring in our house is no longer a fire hazard. So, until next time, remember to be nice to yourself.